On my dashboard, in the top menu bar, click Operational, then click Create Cluster. In this demonstration, we'll be using the free option for Couchbase Capella, so I'll leave this box checked. I'm going to use AWS as our cloud service provider. We'll use the auto-generated cluster name, pick the region closest to me, and then click Create Cluster. This should take several minutes to deploy, and then we'll be ready to go. All right, the cluster has been created. It looks healthy. So to get the connection string, we'll click on the name of the cluster. And then up here, we'll click on Connect. And there is the connection string. Go ahead and copy this value. Next, we'll create a bucket. A bucket contains one or more scopes, and a scope contains one or more collections. To do this, we're going to open the Data Tools option on the menu bar. Now, this particular trial cluster already comes with a bucket with a number of scopes, and each scope has a number of collections. Those collections have documents. But let's show you how to create one. Click Create, and then you can create a new bucket, and then create a scope inside the bucket, and then create a collection inside that scope. Then click Create. You can now see in the list of buckets the bucket we created, the scope inside the bucket, and the collection inside the scope. Copy the name of the bucket, the scope, and the collection. To get the username and the password, with your cluster open, on the Settings button here in the navigation bar, go down in the sidebar under Security to click Cluster Access. Then create Cluster Access. Enter some name. This is a name you'll be using for the user, and some password. I'll be using my password manager here to suggest a strong password. And then, of course, I'll make sure to copy both the username and the password for later use. Now, you'll also want to give this user access to the bucket and scope. So we'll use the bucket name we created earlier, the scope inside that bucket, and access. You can choose read or write, or both read and write, and then click Create Cluster Access. By default, a cluster does not allow any incoming traffic. So you'll need to add the IP addresses of any incoming routes. So to do that, first, open your cluster, then click Settings. On the sidebar, under Networking, click Allowed IP Addresses. Click Add Allowed IP. You have a few options. First is you can allow access from anywhere, and then click Allow Access from Anywhere. This is fine for testing or experimentation purposes, but you wouldn't want to do this in production. Now, Unstructured will have its own IP, and you'll want to allow access. This IP address could change, so for the specific IP address to use, consult the Unstructured documentation.